Hi, I'm Dr. Philip Macmillan, and today I'm going to tackle a very important and emotional topic about the unvaccinated. Why didn't they all die? When you listen to some of the media stories and the pressure that was put upon that unvaccinated cohort, it makes you wonder what happened. Why did it seem that the reality didn't fit with the narrative at the time? I'm interested in the science and I'm interested in balance with regards to the science. So I'm going to play first an emotive video about the unvaccinated that was done by Grabien. I saw it and I thought, wow, that is powerful. So I'll share this with you first, and then I'll give you a little bit about the science as to why what was thought didn't seem to actually happen.
Vaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem. Period. End of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All of us vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called a Christian value.
You're basically punishing the vaccinated for the sins of the unvaccinated.
People are not behaving honorably. The unvaccinated are basically saying, well, it's open season for me. I can do whatever I want as well.
The unvaccinated are basically beating their breasts and running around the country saying, we don't care, we're living free and so forth.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
The unvaccinated, a group that includes children and people acting like children. And the rest of us are starting to get pissed off.
The vaccinated feel the unvaccinated are making me upset or angry.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
Well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
The other day, Howard Stern weighed in with a much different approach. Take a look.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? Their freedom.
But you're treading on our freedom and you're making other people sick, and really you're killing other people.
The anti-vaxxers, they seem to have a thing for death and home remedies.
The anti-maskers turned anti-vaxxers are not just putting their own lives at risk. If that was the issue, we could just say that we can watch them compete to win place or show in the Darwin Awards.
We have to start doing things for the greater good of society and not for idiots who think that they can do their own research.
And don't get me started on the lunatics who won't take any of the COVID vaccines.
Life is too short to be an ass. Life is way too short to be ignorant of the promise of something that is helping people worldwide.
Maybe you're doing it because you're disconnected or disorganized. Maybe you have some sympathetic psychological reasons. But maybe you're just being antisocial.
Oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are.
Those who are not vaccinated will end up paying the price.
The unvaccinated should be taxed. They should pay more for health care.
We need to start looking at the choice to remain unvaccinated the same as we look at driving while intoxicated.
We're going to see, and I've said, almost two types of America.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack, yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo, rest in peace, Wheezy.
Pointing back to the unvaccinated who are really creating a problem in this country, every death that we are seeing from COVID could have been prevented.
Literally, the only people dying are the unvaccinated. And for those of you spreading misinformation, shame on you. Shame on you. I don't know.
That is a very powerful video. It was done by Grabien. I was hoping to try and get it up at the end. And I think the question is based on what was being said at the time, one would have expected that cohort to not be here because they didn't take the COVID vaccine. Now, I've been talking for a long time about the science around COVID-19. And if you don't fully understand the science, you can get very simple bits completely wrong. And that's what we have seen there in that conversation, because what they thought was going to happen didn't actually happen. The question is why? And are they interested in trying to understand what it was that could explain the patterns? Now, there are some very important things to understand, and I always try and get balance here. This is about understanding who is at risk and why they're at risk. So this was a point that I made, and it's the description is in the link with regards to the post that I made over a year ago. Why don't all the unvaccinated people with COVID end up in ICU? And this is a very important but simple point. And I want you to follow this because this is about educating yourself and others about the disease. Here it is at a close-up. In effect, there are three groups, and this is somewhat simplified, but the point is that if you get this point, it will help you to understand. The first point is that what we knew was that over 95% of people who had severe COVID-19 had specific comorbidities: obesity, hypertension, diabetes, cancer. That is the high-risk group. Then you have another group, unvaccinated with COVID-19. Now, listen, this is very important, is that without a shadow of a doubt, at that point, the ICUs were full of people who were unvaccinated. It's just that that transition changed, and we need to understand why it changed. And who were the unvaccinated that were in ICU? That was the more important question. The information that was being put across was that it was random. No, it wasn't random. Again, look at the science. If you had a comorbidity, you were unvaccinated, and you had no prior exposure to any coronavirus, that is the group that would have been at very high risk for severe COVID-19. And this is an important point because I do see it in the comments, and I do try and make sure that people understand the science. This is probably not as relevant now because across the world, most vaccination programs have been tailed back. But at that time, at that point in history, when the vaccines had rolled out, if someone had high risk, no prior exposure, and they were unvaccinated, they were certainly at higher risk of severe COVID-19. And what you should have done from a public health point of view is encourage that cohort. The problem seems to have been that they wanted everybody to get vaccinated, even the low-risk cohorts, children, younger people with no comorbidities. That's where the science deviated into politics. And that's where I think a lot of people got confused about where things were beneficial. Let us be clear. Vaccines have had an impact on severe COVID-19. What we need now is to make sure that we don't have other unknown risks down the line. But in the context of severe COVID-19 in the high-risk cohort, they did help. However, in the context of people who had been previously exposed or who had no comorbidities, that risk was very, very low. But even with those with no comorbidities, why would they get severe COVID-19? And again, the link is here in the description as to why I explained the difference in terms of mild to moderate COVID-19 and severe COVID-19 in a younger person, looking at a critical piece of the puzzle with regards to interferon autoantibodies being elevated, the link with an inflammatory bowel disease, immunosuppression being more protective than at risk, and vitamin D deficiency. These are the kinds of scientific discussions that we need to have and that we need to help to clarify so that people have a better understanding of what is reality and what is fact out there. So the principle that I am making sure everyone grasps is that the unvaccinated didn't all die because it's highly likely that a significant proportion now has natural mucosal immunity. At that time, there was still a risk among some of them. At this point, it could be argued if it could make any difference. It's more difficult to work out the science at this stage. But just remember what happened in that past 2 years, that kind of pressure. We must ensure that at no point does politics ever trump science when it comes to people's health. That is something I hope would never happen again. Have a good evening, everyone. Look forward to speaking again soon.